Welcome back to Rantpocalypse Talks The Strain. I'm Justin, and we are here to discuss Season 3, Episode 5 of FX's The Strain, entitled Madness. And in this episode, Shatrakian seeks help from his nemesis Eldrick Palmer. F's experiments to understand Strigoi communications cause him to descend into madness, which I don't believe that's true. And Fett discovers Strigoi movement across New York. So I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on this week's episode. I was a little bit long on my review for last week. I had a little thing up front. It was really quick. I thought it was funny. But then when I went back and when I was editing my review, I realized that my review was indeed filler. I called the strain out on last week's episode being filler, but then my review was filler as well. So sorry about that. Not going to be that long this week, but I like this episode quite a bit. I said last week's episode was a setup episode. Well, we got another setup episode this week, but I thought they did it so much better this week. I don't know if it's because we got all of our players minus Gus and Angel. Sorry to say it, but I just absolutely hate their story. Like the characters, but their story sucks. They weren't in this episode. I did not miss them, but what we got was all the rest of the characters, and I really liked what each one of our characters were doing this week. They were a little bit fractured. We didn't really have any kind of organization amongst all of our characters in this episode, but it was cool getting to see them do their individual missions. I really enjoyed it. I like the fact that this episode actually moved the plot along. Last week, it didn't move the plot along as much. Think about it. Throughout this episode, we have Dutch and Ephraim actually working on a plan to work to stop the communications from the Master and stop the Strigoi communications with one another, which is really cool. I like the fact that Ephraim is using his noggin, not for dumb shit like he does sometimes on the show, but he's actually using his smarts in order to help the rest of the team stop the Strigoi. I mean, I understand he's the one that came up with the Strigoi WMD, but that's not working out this well. As Dutch pointed out to him when she compared the WMD to a slightly bad case of herpes, which I thought was pretty funny. I actually like these two together a lot more than I thought that I would, and they're not actually seeming to go down this Dutch, Ephraim, and Fett love triangle, at least not to me. We talked about this in our podcast, the fact that I don't think that they're going to do that, but my podcast partners think that they still are, and they saw lots of chemistry between Dutch and F in this episode. I will say that it did look like they were kind of kindling some little bits of romance whenever they were sitting on the stairs and they were drinking booze, and Dutch tells Ephraim, well, we're just going to have to make everything good again. I don't know. You tell me, what do you guys think about Dutch and Ephraim? Do you think they're going to go to the Bone Zone? Let me know in the comment box down below. I also really like the fact that we're getting somewhere with the Lumen. The Lumen is no longer just a doorstop or just to be used as a weapon to bash Stragoi's faces in, even though I really liked when it was used as a weapon. I thought it was a great weapon. It's a great blocker as well. Awesome defense mechanism using the Lumen. But I really like the fact that we're finally getting somewhere with this book. It's been in our possession for a season and a half now on the strain, and I like that the strain had its Uncharted / National Treasure moment. Abe finds out we've got to use the sunlight because you Strigoi munchin bastards can't go out in the sun, so they would never be able to read the text. So he takes it out, he puts it up in the sunlight, and he basically discovers that you just have to bury the Master's ass in order to beat him. I'm paraphrasing quite a bit because Abraham read a lot of text right there, and I don't remember all of it. But Cliff's Notes version, bury his ass, you win. One other thing that I absolutely loved, and I think every Strain fan will have loved in this episode, is the flashback. Jim Watson, he does an amazing job as a young Abraham Shatrakian. I love it whenever we go back to flashbacks of him because Abraham is such an interesting character on the show. The fact that he has been hunting Strigoi for the better part of his life. Since he was a young boy, he's been trying to take out these Strigoi. So I always love it when we take a trip back down memory lane to go hang out with young Abraham. I especially loved it whenever we see young Abe. He's going in that brothel / strip joint in Amsterdam, just thinking about old Abe going into a strip joint, you can't help but laugh and smile because he's so damn cantankerous all the time. So I really like that moment. And the show, not only did it have its Uncharted / National Treasure moment, but it had its Dexter moment as well. If you're not a fan of Dexter, I'm sorry, you need to go watch the show. Yes, it got rather crappy towards the end, but those first, let's say, 4 to 5 seasons of Dexter was phenomenal. And whenever Abe takes Dr. Draverhaven and cuts his ass into little pieces and throws him off the boat, I was like, he learned that from Dexter. And it was a really cool scene. I like that they took it to that point in the show. We haven't really seen anything really dark and sinister on the show in a while now. And that's something that FX does really well. I mean, they have American Horror Story. Back when Nip Tuck was on, there was always like extremely dark and just nasty, gory shots that you would get on that show. I get that it was surgery stuff and surgery related, but it was still really visceral and it was disturbing. And whenever Abe goes in there, it was disturbing seeing all those bodies. Dr. Draverhaven got everything that he deserved. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm going to give it 4.25 bacons out of 5. Fantastic job this week getting me more invested or reinvested back into the strain after last week's so episode. Wasn't terrible, it just wasn't up to the standards that they have been achieving in the first couple of episodes of season 3. What do you guys think is in that ship? Do you think that it is actually the ancient that the Egyptians supposedly took out by burying that ancient? Because that's a lost ancient. We don't know where it's at. I think whenever Quinlan and Abe went to go see the ancients, it feels like there's only 3 of them there. The master makes 4. There's 7 ancients, I thought. Maybe I'm wrong. You can correct me in the comment box down below. I'm thinking maybe that's what's on that ship. It's something very important. I'm very excited to find out. I'm also very excited to see what's going to happen with Palmer and Satrakian making a pact to be partners. Palmer doesn't look that good right now. He's on the outs with Icorst, so we shall see what happens in next week's episode, which is entitled The Battle of Central Park. So it looks like Fett is going to go get to kill lots of Munchers, which I always like. We didn't get a lot of him in this episode, but what we got I thought was fun. Got some one-liners. Fett throwing some dude on like this rotating blade. It was pretty awesome. I like that. The worms exploding everywhere. Lots of really good stuff in this episode to like. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comment box down below. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you have a fantastic day, and bye-bye.